Okay, can you all hear me now at the other end?
Yes, I said lots of wonderful things about you, but you didn't hear it.
Oh, well, someone had their hand up, but I'm assuming that means you can now hear me. So I'm Krysia Waldock. I am a postdoctoral researcher at Swansea University. I wear about 10 billion hats doing 10 billion different things. And it disappeared. Basically, I'm a bit of an annoyance. I'll ask for awkward questions about to be irritant. And my main interest is getting people behaving themselves and being properly inclusive, not at a tokenistic level, but properly unpicking it when we look at how we do things and the systems that underpin things. Do you want to introduce yourself, Nathan?
Ah, yes, I am, as it says here, Dr. Keates. I work here at the University of Sunderland in London. I'm a lecturer in health and social care, and there's many more things I'm sure I could say, but they're probably not of great use right now.
Fab. So we have this evening, we have a panel of lovely authors, which I'm going to be chairing some questions. We then have some food. You can network, not network, hang out, chill, do whatever you need to. And then we will I have prepared a talk on Morby being basically asking lots of questions about the second book, which is application to practices. Then we have the fabulous Brian, who's hiding. I don't know where Brian's gone. There he is. He's not got his orange jumper on, so I couldn't see you. He's also going to do some talking as well. So if our fantastic panelists could come up, that would be fantastic. Have you got your chairs?
Yep, that's good. And you're okay for...
I'm okay.
Okay.
I am going to plonk myself. I don't mind.
Never something come as a pair.
Also, I'll pull up their questions because I need to know what I'm asking you. So we have five. I was going to say four, but we have 4 chapters represented by 5 fantastic people here. And I wondered before I ask you the questions if I can pass the mic down and you can briefly introduce yourself to our lovely audience and people at home.
Hello everyone, my name is Jada Brown. Like Krysia, I'm many things, but I'm currently a PhD student at Waldock, University of London. And my research is looking at the embodied experiences of Black autistic university students in the UK. And I focus on themes relating to identity, belonging, and how they navigate the wider systems and structures of higher education. Yeah, that's me.
Hi everyone, I'm Maisie Roberts. I work as a Quality Diversity Inclusion Manager in local government. I'm also a writer, really interested in themes of neurodivergent sociality, workplace advocacy, relationships, connection, those kind of themes. And I'm also a coach.
So I'm Fee McEwen-Thompson. I'm lecturer at the University of Sunderland and far too overwhelmed right now to talk anymore.
She did so well there, though. We've been practicing on the way here just in case. I'm Simon Ripley. I work for University of Sunderland up in Sunderland, and it's great to be here for a change of venue and meet everyone. I've got ADHD. I work alongside Fee, and we've got a similar interest in terms of inclusive practice, but also in terms of encouraging people to feel that they can be authentic in a way that benefits their practice.
Thank you. And I'm resisting doing a song and dance routine. Now you're giving me. I'm Ellie Rickard. I'm from the University of Huddersfield. So I work in ITE, so initial teacher education, so training working with primary school teachers. Late diagnosed neurodivergent, different from my PhD area, but my PhD was about inclusion. My work now is all about neurodiversity affirming practice. So sort of developing that theory of inclusion.
Did you do that? So my first question for you all, if you can answer it maybe in 1 or 2 sentences, that would be great. I'm aware we've got quite a few questions to get through and there's food. What is your chapter about?
I did prepare the 1 or 2 sentences. My chapter looks So I focus on the intersection of race and specifically Blackness and autism and how that shapes the autistic experiences of students moving through the education trajectory. So from primary school all the way to higher education. I use the theory of discrit, which is disability critical race theory, which kind of highlights how racism and ableism are interconnected, interrelated. And I use this to kind of highlight some of the experiences that Black autistic students have. So, for example, how Black autistic girls experience adultification, stuff to do with stereotypes of Black masculinity, all of those kind of things. And then I offer a couple of steps at the end of what you could do for empowering these students.
Okay, so my piece centres on the workplace, and I look at how neurodivergent workers can start to challenge some of the ableism they face on a daily basis in the workplace and really explore some of the narratives that we face, I guess, as a community when we're at work. We're often kind of socially subjugated, pathologised at work, face kind of bullying, discrimination, have to kind of mask, and obviously that leads to things like burnout. So that's kind of a daily reality we face, but then at the same time, we're also kind of more and more increasingly desired by employers in the labour market who kind of look at neurodivergent kind of so-called strengths as a kind of desirable thing. So I kind of look at how do we navigate that and how do we challenge that inherent ableism that we face at work. So I provide some kind of a bit of a structure and kind of practical steps of how we might do that. Yeah, and it's also based on some of my own experience of the workplace, but I'll leave it at that.
Our chapter was very much based on a conversation we had over the photocopier about unmasking. So we're able to look at us as in the workplace, but also as learners as well. We're both still students at work, and how we have both come to a point where we could mask, but to different levels, I suppose. Levels, would you
I
say?
just wanted to hear what you had to say.
But and how, we talked the chapter talks about the detrimental aspects of masking. We talk a lot more about autistic people masking rather than ADHDs, and we had to look at some of the research based on that to then bring it round to what it meant for us as ADHDs. So, but also while looking at how detrimental it is, we really wanted to focus on how positive it was to whatever level we have been able to unmask with that, the positives that gave us in the workplace and as students.
I think you've taken all my sentences, but it was very much about the detrimental side of things and the experiences that we've had, but also the positive things that can be put in place to encourage people to not mask or consider the masking to a greater extent, so we can avoid burnout, we can avoid people under significant pressure trying to cope alongside people who don't have the challenges that we face.
I think my sort of follows on quite nicely from this. So my chapter is very much about thriving over surviving, because I find myself in a workplace now where I'm supported for long-term thriving. I'm not trying to keep my head above water. There are systems in place, there are people in place who are supporting me to thrive, rather than just keep going and then maybe have a burnout and have to have time off. And I want to do that, show how easy it is with these simple little things for other people to do the same. So it's a conversation here a lot from teachers. We've got 30 children, we've got 2 children who are autistic. I can't just meet the needs of those 2 children, but my chapter is very much around how that meeting the needs of those 2 children benefits everyone.
So I wonder, in light of your chapter, what your hopes are for doing things better for neurodivergent people of all ages. So I guess, because in our book, although one of them has the word education on it, we purposely want to look at neurodivergent people of all ages. What are your hopes for doing things better, improved practice, getting rid of neuronormativity out of stuff?
Many things. I think one of the most important things for me is training, and that is neurodiversity affirming training and also anti-racist training and thinking about how they interact. I think it's important that this training should be mandated and not just some optional add-on side quests, tick box exercise that institutions have to do. I think it needs to be institutionalized, and I think that way, I think a wide number of people, whether that's in education institutions, but also people caring for neurodivergent people, those in their family can actually start to think about it differently and care for them properly. Another thing I'd also like to see is this is in relation to education, but institutions to take more accountability and kind of recognize their responsibility for their students. So doing things involving neurodivergent people in policy making and actively involving them in decisions relating to their lives. I'd like to see things like universal design for learning actually being taken seriously. Many other things, but I don't want to take more time, so.
No, absolutely agree. And I think it's all about getting more neurodivergent voices in the way we design workplaces, policies, practices, having more intersectional perspectives in that. And for me, one thing that I've really got out of work is actually kind of connecting with other groups. So I've learned a lot from the kind of broader disability community in terms of accessibility. And I think as a community, as researchers in this area, I'd quite like to see us doing that more. And I think with that, there's just so much to gain from that. So yeah, connecting more with other groups who face barriers in society rather than us just being just a neurodivergent community, if that makes sense.
I'll give you 1 second, and then I'll say I'm going to talk much longer.
She says that.
For me, it's about creating spaces where those who are neurodivergent can be authentic.
That is the shortest I've ever heard her say it on anything. We're a bit of a tag team. For me as well, it's about what everybody's been saying here about meeting new people in new organisations and universal design for learning being incorporated in a way that isn't tokenistic or because it's something that's flavour of the year, but as well it fits in with what you were saying before about ITE. So the predominant focus of my work over the last couple of years has been working with trainee teachers. So my idea is to try and empower them to be authentic in the classroom and feel comfortable to do that through the work I do with them, so that they can then encourage children who are neurodivergent to be authentic in themselves.
I'm going to absolutely echo that because I think authenticity is the huge thing. As somebody who's late diagnosed ADHD, definitely autistic, gender non-conforming, queer, like it's all those intersectionalities of authenticity, and it's authentic inclusion. And if you're authentically inclusive for one group of people, you've got to be authentically inclusive for all. And I think that's the whole point. I think just authentic inclusion so that others can be authentic.
I absolutely love how you all tailed into each other. We're not just talking about neurodivergence, but we're talking about other parts of neurodivergent people's lives, like their ethnic background, like the fact they could be queer. Actually, how we all things collide, and it's just so important because often I feel that we put some neurodivergence in a box and don't deal anything outside that box, and that really annoys me. So our next question is a bit shorter. I wondered what your one key take-home message from your chapter was, if you have one. It can be two, if you want to have two take-home messages, but if you want one, everybody in the room and online to know one thing about your chapter, what do you want them to know?
Mine actually nicely follows on from what you were saying. My key take-home message is that autistic people and neurodivergent people more generally are not just autistic and they're not just neurodivergent. They can be many things, and I think, autism or neurodivergence will always shape your other identities, and your other identities will always shape your autism or your neurodivergence. And I think really delving into this concept of intersectionality, the Black feminist theorist Kimberly Crenshaw came up with. I think looking at how different structures of domination, like racism, ableism, sexism, thinking about students and where they sit on this axis, that's the only way that we can actually begin to support them with this baseline understanding.
Yeah, so I guess my key take-home message is kind of linked to the framework I used, which I draw heavily on a concept called microactivism, and that's a way, an accessible way that we can advocate for our needs as a community, and it's all about instigating change on the everyday platform of our lives. So my kind of key take-home message is around that, and it's about if we can advocate for our needs on that kind of micro level, it provides that platform for organising at a much more collective and structural level later. So practicing that, a really accessible way of doing it, gives us that platform to create change at a much more macro level later.
I think from our chapter, and I'm sure Phil add to this as well, if she's happy to, is around just making sure that we recognise that masking, which is what our chapter is overall, specifically around ADHD, which there isn't very much written about, but it applies across a whole range of conditions, not just neurodiverse conditions. We all mask as a human behaviour, and that can be very healthy. But also it can very easily slip into a situation where it becomes very unhealthy, and it's difficult to recognise the difference unless you understand enough about it, and there isn't a lot written out there in a way that's accessible or available.
So in that sense, it's important for us to create those spaces where people who are neurodivergent and can unmask so that they can thrive and don't burn out or quit or, to be filled full of shame as I have.
And enjoy life more.
I think the key takeaway from my chapter is really about getting to know those people you're educating. So mine's very much from an education-based focus. But so I lead on the ITE course, so I've got 150 students, and one of the first conversations I have with them at open days is I always say, you're not going to be able to follow me, and I'm sorry if I make you feel unwell, because I'm going to be moving up and down. I am ADHD autistic, and the number of conversations that come from that. And I think connections, learning about the people that you're working with or educating is the way forward. It's why I went into teaching. It's why I love the job I do now, because I get to know the trainees, I get to know them, and then I'm so proud of them at graduation when they go out into their classes and I still work with them. There's 2 trainees on my BA3 course who I used to teach when they were 10. So that connection goes right back to there. And once you connect with people, then they hopefully will be able to tell you what they need, and you can meet their needs easier.
And there's one final question. I guess it'd be really good for the people in the room and online to know why people should read your chapter. Specifically yours.
Feels a bit like self-promotion. I think you should read my chapter. If you're working with neurodivergent people and you have never really considered what it might be like to be neurodivergent and also racialized as Black or Black mixed race, I think Talila Lewis, I don't know if you know them, but on their website, they speak about ableism in particular, and they speak about how ableism is inherently rooted in anti-Blackness, because obviously ableism is all about assigning value to people's bodies and minds based on these like societally constructed ideas of normalcy, intelligence, excellence, productivity, etc., which are obviously all rooted in anti-Blackness, eugenics, colonialism, capitalism. And I think if you read my chapter, you can really see how the experiences of the students really do reflect this idea. And I think if you want to like sit with some uncomfortable truths and really push yourselves as practitioners, as people, I think, and I also offer some concrete ways forward as well, and some good references.
In terms of my chapter, I think so many of us still face so many barriers at work. It's still an area that a lot of us struggle in. So my piece, I try and kind of depart away from some of those kind of self-helpy kind of guides of surviving the workplace and adopt a much more critical lens and really shine a light on some of those barriers, but also give a bit of hope, I guess, because sometimes, particularly when I reflect on my own experiences of the workplace and some of the discrimination I've faced, it can be hard to think, God, how am I going to survive in this context? So how can we develop agency in the workplace? So I really explore that, how we can connect with other neurodivergent communities, other groups who also face barriers, and give a bit of a framework to develop that yourself. So yeah, when I started reading about this kind of literature around the workplace, I think a lot of the texts were kind of either that kind of very business case for employing neurodivergent workers. So I kind of critique that kind of point of view and look at it more from neurodivergent people leading that kind of liberation to their own kind of workplace futures. So really kind of getting away from those perspectives.
Not if you work with learners who are neurodivergent, but also if you are neurodivergent, one of the things we do hope, rather than about the content, was the way we laid it out, because we laid it out with the conversation we had, and then the analysis of that came afterwards with literature. If you are neurodivergent, I think it may be quite accessible. That's one.
That was one of our hopes, and it takes quite a lot. We've taken an approach where it is about us, and we link it to reading that we've done over time, but also specifically for the chapter. But actually, I think it's fair to say that we were both quite brave in putting in some of the things in there, and I would never describe myself as brave in any way whatsoever, but we'd like to hope that people, by reading the chapter, can see that it is possible to unmask and be more authentic, but do it in ways that don't require you to use a particular framework in a self-help guide kind of thing. So what you were saying before, so there were some aspects in there about you can start to change behaviours without it needing to fit within a specific traditional formula.
So I think I've stolen a bit of a format from the ADHD Adults podcast, if anybody listens to them, in that I've done very much links to literature, but then also links to what that can look like in educational practice. What I'm not doing are giving you things that are just going to work. So I'm not giving you a tick list. I'm giving you this is how it's worked in conversations for my practice. This is how I've seen it work in practice. So I'm taking universal design for learning because I think that is absolutely key, that we can't give educators tons of extra, and actually it's not tons of extra, it's guaranteed, it's just general authentic inclusion. So it's taking that approach, and then I've got some sort of vignettes in there where I can demonstrate how it's worked in practice. And the idea is that actually teachers can look at it and go, okay, this is how I'll develop my practice, but they can also go to their line manager and say, we need to develop our practice, look, linked in this literature, here's the reference to the literature. You know, it kind of gives that backup. But I also want parents to access it, because I want parents to be going to teachers and going, hang on, neurodiversity of learning practice, this is what my child deserves.
Super. Yes, you've all summed it up much better than me, because I guess a lot of the growths that I have, a lot of my work is based from religious groups, and I see so much overlap between what we perhaps do in the workplace and in schools, people wanting checklists and these exact things that people want to do, when actually you can't do that. And often people get a bit annoyed when I go, yeah, that doesn't work. So I'm really glad that there's lots of people that agree with me. So we have about 20 minutes for some food. I selected the lovely menu. I'm going to take full accountability for that. So if you can't eat anything, it's my fault. I picked things that I thought I would eat as an age eater. But I've also tried to get things that have a variety of things that don't have things in them and that weren't sensory aversive. There's also a vending machine out there and a coffee machine in case you want to get anything that perhaps isn't available there. You're very welcome to talk to people, network, take space for yourself, move around. We're very happy to take a moment to sit outside, sit in here, sit on the floor. There's a quiet room in 001, which is just past the what's it called? The perception test, is it, Nathan?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some amazing sensory kit in there called Have a Fiddle with Anything. It's also the lights are off, so if you're feeling the lights here are a bit lighty, you need to take some time, that's absolutely fine. We'll reconvene back here. So I'm going to speak for a little short amount of time on some things that I speculate about the books, but also how it perhaps could link to doing things differently for anyone who watches this, maybe at a different time, or if I use the slides at any point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reflect on the book when it works. I'm going to reflect on the book because it took a lot of work and it's really cool. And it's really cool having sat there in front of us. I'm going to reflect on why it's needed, and I have some pictures and some memes, and I can't promise that they're not funny and they're not topical. And then Nathan and I are going to show you this really cool iDocs we've been working with all of our wonderful authors across both books have very kindly recorded some video. And for posterity, we have put them on a website so that people can watch the video. Completely blame me, that was my idea, not Nathan's, causing us extra work for everybody else. Basically, because we know that paywalls are annoying and people want to access knowledge even if they're not in university. So in terms of the book, so applications and practices for empowering neurodivergent learners. There we go, lovely shiny book. Couldn't make it any bigger without the picture getting really pixelated, which really annoyed me. And about 3 weeks ago, I came out of our house and I dropped my phone on the floor, and all my pictures, including the proofs of the front of the book, disappeared because my phone smashed, and I can't now attach it to my computer because the investor have to okay it doing it. So Nathan very kindly sent me the picture, and that's because I could make it. And I guess in terms of applications and practices, we often think of things like tick boxes and easy how-tos. And I think, as our panel have said, much better than I could say, and I think it's really good that this came out of the panel discussion, that applications and practices isn't about providing a tick box list of things we could do. Some chapters have some useful suggestions and hints that are much more applied. Some have a lot more theory in them. Some have lots of things that are actually quite challenging, and I think that's really important because we need things that are a bit challenging. Even for those of us who are perhaps a bit more seasoned in neurodiversity research and groups of marginalised and oppressed people, there's always new stuff to learn, always new stuff to do. And it's kind of, some of this tails off of a paper my friend Renation and I wrote, and Renation's at the room at the front, about cripping and neuroqueering spaces in the sociology of religion. I had a thought about this, and I thought a lot of what we said is actually not limited to sociology of religion or religious studies stuff. Actually, a lot of the stuff we were saying about how we do things, who we listen to, and how we think about people and systems is actually really important across the board. And it's in terms of how we do education, how we do workplace, how we do university, how we do entertainment, how we do religion, how we do insert any institution here. And I'm going to unpick a couple of these statements, and I have some lovely quotes from some of our lovely authors. There's so many more that I could have picked, to be honest, but I just picked a couple. I went through last night when I was preparing the slides and went, which ones are particularly pertinent and particularly good, and particularly to the point. So I guess the first one is to empower neurodivergent people, we need to actively rethink how we do things. And it's not just necessarily around, oh, if we put a sensory room in the corner, that's going to be a really good idea. Or, oh, if we turn the lights down, that's going to be really helpful. It's often about changing the way we do things from the top up and the bottom down. Rachel Turlock in her chapter on the Turlock technique speaks about how traditional sit and get instruction has dominated classrooms, but actually her students got really disengaged. And actually she now incorporates movement, rhythm and play into her teaching practice. And Ellie Brickwood, who's lovely in the room, has also said to build a truly neurodiversity affirming culture, the use of STIMs should be permissible and even when needed encouraged. So it's not just in terms of, oh, here's a STEM toy, it's actually how we do and how we are as a group, as a community in the room. How do we break down neuronormative ideals of what we're doing and wherever we are? It also requires rethinking who we listen to. I think, so when I was, so for full disclosure, I'm neurodivergent. I'm multiply ND, I'm autistic, I highly suspect I'm for ADHD, and I'm very bendy, and I drop things consistently, and I'm completely time blind, etc., etc., etc. Actually, I wish that a lot of people that I'd known when I was younger, who taught me, had actually known, perhaps listening to professionals in ivory towers perhaps isn't the best way forward. Perhaps we need to listen to the people who are on the ground, living and experiencing what's going on. And reflecting on how all that might change what we do. So Cara Diamond in her chapter said that her initial expectations within the profession, so she's a teacher, were quite rigid, and she encountered frequent power struggles as she tried to assert control in the classroom. She'd been trained in ABA techniques as a special education teacher. And this actually changed when I began to seek out autistic voices and realised the problem with the conventional view that it should not be on the autistic people to adapt or adjust. Alicia Pawluczek also has a fantastic quote in her chapter on neuroqueering digital youth work. Highly recommend it. Fantastic stuff with neuroqueering practice. And she says by centering neurodivergent and queer ways of being, neuroqueering might offer a framework for creating spaces that reject compliance-driven, deficit-based models of learning. And I think it echoes a lot of what the panel was saying earlier, that it's not just about doing something for the one person in the room, it's actually everyone benefits, lots of people benefit, when we try and move away from this idea of normativity, normalcy, and control. And I guess also it means we need to rethink how we think about people and systems as well. And all the different flavours that people come with. Shenda Benoit and colleagues said that leveraging support to promote humanised approaches involves the inclusion of different cultural perspectives around neurodivergent identities. So the knowledge systems of disabilities can be transformative. So it's not just only taking one understanding, perhaps dominant understanding, it's actually looking at lots of different backgrounds perhaps that haven't been heard. And Jada Brown also says that actually when we're looking at how we do inclusion, representation and racial equality, the disparate classroom ecology reflects social justice politics by creating accessible and anti-colonial educational environments where Black autistic students thrive. And I think the intertwining, and this is going to lead on really nicely onto my next slide, where I start talking about stuff, actually, that when we think about neurodivergent accessibility and inclusion, perhaps what we're actually meaning is liberation, and we're looking at colonial systems which have held people to different degrees, and actually we need to bin them in a very polite way. So I guess it comes on to the question of, well, why are you talking about being radical, Krysia? Why? What is the point of this? And when we look at the current climate, and I have some really good news about paracetamol coming up. How on earth is radical? Actually, the whole idea of valuing people for where they're at, looking at the systems which actually oppress people, looking at how it's not the same across everybody, actually, it challenges colonial, neoliberal and normative systems which guide a lot of what we do. I mean, it guides higher education, just from having worked in higher education for a number of years, it definitely guides everything else as well. It also challenges the "we've always done it this way" groupthink, which is a lot of feedback I often get when I used to do quite a lot of autism training in churches. And I used to challenge people on how to do things. But we've always done it this way, why should I change? Why should we change when there's a majority of people that actually are absolutely fine, / haven't voiced any explicit discomfort about the way it's to be done? And it also challenges power and who holds it. Goes back to ivory towers, who's talking, who's got the microphone. I've got the microphone right now, but normally I don't. Normally I'm the annoying person asking awkward questions at the back, or hiding, or posting things on LinkedIn. And so I guess it's radical because of what we're looking at doing and how we're doing it and the setup we're in. It shouldn't be radical, but it is because of the context. And it is radical to challenge status quo, to say that all body minds are actually valuable. And I put a link to intersectionality because I was going to talk about that, but our lovely panel did a much better job than I would. So they've said everything I would say. And I think it's really important that when we think about body minds, we're not thinking of one neurodivergent boxed body mind. We're looking at really, really fluidness, echoing queer theory. Why do we need a book like this? Sucker and do a lot of things and don't say no. I was bored after my PhD, didn't think I could so quickly. I like being annoying. Nathan likes being busy, working hard, but also, in short, we need it for people like this. Now, I had great fun last night going through pictures of me when I was younger, trying to find pictures where my parents didn't look stressed. Because they wanted to know what seasonal, where she looks clearly in pain. My mum has a little cage in her back. This was before she had the titanium cage in her back, and she was clearly in a lot of pain. There's another one with my dad wearing a sooty mask and a sweet mask. Now, he did not want to be wearing that mask, and he was very kind of stressed. So I picked two of me with guitars. I can't play the guitar. Never have, never will. Hurts the fingers too much. But when we think of why we want to do it, it's for young people to make their lives better. And for anyone at any life stage to make things better. I also picked those two pictures because I look pretty decent. And I don't take that many photographs, so there isn't loads of pictures of me that are very, very up to date. And also because of things like this. I hate smart. It annoys me. Any school that does it are basically just dead well on route. If someone told me to track the speaker, they'd get my middle finger up in their face. I don't do that. At school, I used to very much not talk, not answer questions, keep myself to myself, but I didn't flag myself out as different. It's also because of things like the autism announcement. This is where I cue this really good Star Trek meme. Did you hear RFK Jr. blamed Tylenol for autism? And Spock going, illogical. Acetaminophen does not cause autism. Well, then what are we supposed to tell the parents of neurodivergent kids? Tell them they have a bright future in Starfleet. So I'm still waiting for my Starfleet letter. But contextually, that's what we're working in. That's the political climate. And we can't ever divorce the context of the climate we're in from what we're doing in our job as teachers, educators, researchers, neurodivergent people bumping around, asking awkward questions. That's the context that we're working in. This is why it's radical. This is why we need radical rethinking and to empower people as part of communities to do stuff. So I guess the question is what next? And this is where I invite Nathan up. So we have a fancy QR code and we've got something to show you. I could have written about lots of future steps we could take. People should do some research, practice activism. But actually, what's really, I guess, useful is for us to show you what we've been playing with at 10 o'clock last night on computer, which is this. If you want to have a look on that QR code or that website, we will give you a couple of minutes to get on the website. And then I'm going to go on the website. And Nathan's going to talk about what we've been up to. If you need to get up, move, etc., that's absolutely fine. Make the space yours. I don't expect you to stay sitting in a chair unless you want to be. Full disclosure, earlier I've been here all day. I was laying on the floor in one of the meeting rooms because my back hurt. So I don't do sitting in chairs unless I have to. Also want to make sure that it's shared for all our lovely people on the online.
Yeah.
Might want to share it as well with online.
Yeah.
Oh, they have, they can see it. Alex, super duper. So people at home, can you see the link? Say no if you can't. Our lovely online bot person, Alexander Newson, can help you if you're stuck.
We got it.
That's good. Someone said yes, that's great. People at home, have you got it on your phones if whatnot?
If you can.
If you can, yes, we have people on it. Nathan, do you want to take your email? I've got your email separately. I'll hand over to you.
Okay. So, this is an IDOC website, which stands for Interactive Documentary Website, which basically is just an interactive website at the lowest form it can be. And I think this is a really interesting way of providing information to people, because it gives the user their own pathways that they want to go through to explore what they want to explore. So if you can, scroll down. Can you scroll down?
And if I, where is it?
It's over there. I've made it awkward because I got the setup that I like.
You can see our lovely faces.
So these are just info videos. But scroll down further. So we got the about, we got all chapters, so you can see what chapters in what book, and we've got the tags as well. So if you click on, okay then. That's just about us though, about edited collection. So yeah, this is briefly about the edited collections themselves, where you can get it. But the interesting thing we really want is the tags.
So how do I get back to the tags?
That's on the home,
Can't find the home
the
button.
one that looks like a house.
Where is it?
It should be in the corner, but it's in the middle of the page apparently. Something to fix.
Could you click it? Because I can't see it from this angle.
Okay. So, there it is. I can't see the mouse, so it's really bad. You're shooting away as well, so I can't definitely can't see. To the left, to the right.
If you go down, oh yeah, and then to the left.
Game on, game on.
In the middle.
It's like Twitch.
Yeah, there we are, there we are. Yeah, got that.
Yeah. Tags. So as you can see, you just select a tag, and then you would be able to see chapters, talking heads as we call it, around that. So let's go with higher education.
Again, I accept full responsibility for this. This is completely my idea.
It's actually brilliant.
So here it is. We've got the videos that relate to higher education and the APA levels right next to it.
In case you
So-
want to reference it for an essay or send it to your students, or in case you need a reference, basically, because we're very pro people being attributed for the hard work that they put into their chapters, because a lot of our authors have done a lot of hard work.
Even more. Well, that's a different, another thing to fix, because I'm pretty sure I clicked higher education. Oops. But that is some more as well. So that's just one of them, and obviously at the top should be home. But obviously I'm going to struggle to find that home button right at this angle again. But that's the IDOC website. So feel free to explore. If there's any mistakes in it, feel free to contact me
Yeah.
politely, nicely, kindly.
Yeah, please contact Nathan because I got overwhelmed at the idea that I had, so Nathan put it all together for me. I just said, these tags kind of fit here, macro thinking of kind of autistic ADHD person, and fine detail person put it together. I'm now going to try and how do I put this back on my final slide?
There you go.
There we go. So if you want to talk to me, I don't know how you would. I have a cat called Fudge. She lives at my parents' house. She's an absolute queen. She's also behaves. I mean, I don't like to attribute autism to cats, but she kind of does behave quite autistically. You can have me on LinkedIn. You can have me on LinkedIn. You can follow me on Blue Sky. I'm more active on LinkedIn than Blue Sky because when I dropped my phone, I lost all my apps and I haven't re-put some on my phone back yet. If you want any of my references, email me. I can send them to you. Any issues with the IDOC's website, please email both of us, not just me, because I am a little slower email than Nathan, and your email might get missed. So I'm just going to be quite honest there. And we're now going to hand over to Brian, and Brian is going to be fantastic.
Next time we have a meeting, if you're at your parents', I want you to do the full Lion King thing with Fudge.
She won't let me.
Oh, that
She
makes
won't let
it
me.
funnier. Oh.
She won't. And I'm going to also
The days ago, and
Brian, do you want
I'm
this?
inspired. It's brilliant.
Yes, I.
Yes, I do want one of those. You may have noticed. Have yourself a really good journey. You take care. I get excited. I get excited an awful lot, and I'm allowed to now that I'm a grown-up. It's brilliant. I get excited by books that stir things up, and I get excited by books that are packed full. I've used the word radical change makers, but we didn't do notes.
We didn't talk to each other.
No, but there's obviously something in the book that's deeply true. And so I got excited when I was given both copies of these books, just to give a little reflection on things. You see, one of the big ideas that makes me all shiny, it's, okay, do we have any sociologists in the room? Oh,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
But proper sociologists just go, yeah. Yeah. Okay, there is something called social mobilisation theory, Snow and Benford. I like it an awful lot. I actually think that when we are mentors, we take a lot of this mobilisation theory. I want to unpack it a little bit for you and tell you why it matches this book so nicely. Social mobilisation theory says that for any social movement to come about, things like the suffragettes, things like Black Lives Matter, things like Me Too or Extinction Rebellion, or maybe the neurodiversity movement. For any of these social movements to happen, we need three things to happen. And at this point, the theory makes me go to sleep because they talk about the diagnostic, prognostic, and motivational bits. It's not very catchy. So today, with this book in mind, Application and Practices, and its sister book, Neurodivergent Education and Lifelong Learning, I'm going to introduce you to a far catchier way of talking about social mobilisation. It's called Name, Frame, and Flame. Ooh, very sexy. So the name bit, name bit is where if we have a social movement, we're getting around and we're bringing around social change, we first of all need to name the things that are wrong in the world. We call out and we speak to power. I will say, if you get a chance to read them both, this Neurodivergent Education and Lifelong Learning is a really good book at naming the injustices that are going on. Not saying it doesn't happen in the other books, but it's particularly good. We name things that are wrong by calling out injustices that neurodistinct folks have. And particularly, and I'm going to speak for myself as someone who didn't work well with school. There were good intention, but wrong places in which I was educated. Sometimes I was even educated at home, but only because I was thrown out of school. Amazing, just far too much eyeliner. Why? I was very, very happy in eyeliner, but back in the day, that was a bit, can't do that. When you name stuff, you start to talk about the intersections of that naming and the solidarity that runs through our experiences, and it binds us together. By naming, and that's the troubles around us, by naming them out itself is not enough. After name, we have to frame. And this is what applications for practices for empowering neurodivergent learners does incredibly well. It starts to talk about the different frames, the bits around how we see issues. Could I just get you to grab your fingers? Anything else about that? That is a frame. Now that's a frame just seeing me, but also we have frames. I just like the fact that everybody's taking imaginary pictures of me. That's just really lovely. I shall ask people to do that more often. When we start framing things, it's also about how we think about things. And when we are educated in schools, and if you're educated schools in the 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, maybe it's better now. There were certain things you could not think about. You were not allowed and given the language to think about. The authors take lived experience of themselves and their learners, and they've stacked this book full of yes and. It isn't just accepting frames forced upon us. Rather, each chapter paints possibilities, and it shows us a path to where we can have better places where we can be understood and understand, where demands to change the way we think to understand others are actually really, really helpful. It's a good frame. It flips, like Luke Bearden in his introduction, uses the word scupularity. He's kind of made this word up. It's brilliant. It's a great made up word. That hideous feeling that you get at school when you think you're always wrong. Oh, I see so many people nodding. We've been there. That feeling when you sit at school and when you say something and everyone just goes, "What, Brian?" It's that hideous feeling. That's scupularity. And it takes us from that place. And by reframing things, takes us to a place where our worries, fears, and grievances are believed. Now, to prove this, I am going to very, very quickly go through each chapter. There are 17 chapters, and I read them all, and I wrote one sentence about how the frame changes from one place to another. I'm very mobile today. I suddenly realised I'm on my feet, and it's exciting tippy toes. This is why I was a nightmare at school. Fergus and Samantha started off, and they centre autistic-led theorising as being essential to dismantle deficit models in education. That changing of the frame. This isn't about imposing ideas from above. This is actually about autistic folk, neurodistinct folk, having created their own theories to encapsulate their own experience. That's one of the places we start. It becomes a line of flight, a vector, if you like. Then Sylvia frames participation as a paradigm shift that validates autistic knowledge and resists deficit-based educational norms. It's a big old sentence, wasn't it? Shenda, Zoe and Joanne, Joni, thank you, run with this framing, and they describe the potential for compassionate learning. Now, I'm a great one. Compassion to all, apart from those who can't be compassionate, then they may get the Dr. Martin Luke. And that puts that creative tension. We're looking for a world that's going to be better. There's a here, yes, it can happen, but not yet. And we share our stories together. Sorry, that was more than one sentence. Jada, who's just disappeared, took this emancipatory hope for a better place and brings the intersectional reality in the naming of justice, particularly in the encounters of the harsh judgments of character endured by Black autistic youth. This reframes things in classrooms, the way that we become teachers. It reframes them in liberatory ecologies. Simon and Fee, at the back, give me a wave. They're lovely. Simon and Fee take masking to task by framing the debate as one that moves towards unmasking as authentic ways of being and being safely. How do we create places of safety? There we go. Oh, I like it. Simon just. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Christina and Ava together, they reframed executive functioning through the dialogical self. It's worth a read. How do we talk about ourselves? It's a good framing. Ellie framed learning, as many educators in this book does. There's Ellie. Hello. You frame it through the lens of universal design for learning and the affirmative cultures it aspires to. Reframing not education just as the passing on of knowledge, but about creating cultures. Lauren calls for reframing inclusion by simply listening and creating those safe spaces, those embedded, flexible practices so that neurodivergent minds can flourish. Cara does a bit of a frame switch and urges teachers to move from awareness to allyship. That's a good frame switch. Laura, hello. Laura proposes, this made me very excited, a network of practitioners for specialist autism mentors like myself, like Laura. Don't keep it to Scotland, we need it everywhere. And that reframing to become collective endeavours rather than solitary provisions, very good reframing. Alicia runs with the framework of neuroqueering as a liberatory approach to digital youth work. I like this bit. It resists neuronormative and heteronormative frames. It's not just about making a frame, it's about resisting the other frames. Ashley and Caitlin examine creativity and identity and reframing neurodivergence as valued as a cultural asset, not a deficit. Important point, I took ages on that sentence because I was just thinking about value, and it's the cultural asset. It's not buying ourselves into the sort of late stage capitalist model. There is better things about culture. Rachel reframes stimming as a creative expression. Oh, that's just one of the best reframing. Actually, to stim is to be creative. Claire and Rebecca changed the frame from in foregrounding autistic perspectives on eating. And actually the over-pathologizing of disordered framings of eating. Actually, you like a plate full of beige. It's a plate full of beige. It's brilliant. Emily frames how autistic youth co-produced cafe spaces that privileged autistic ways of being. And in doing so, it changes the frame of what cafes could be. It's not just what cafes are now. It's about seeing things in a whole new way. Naomi insisted that nothing about us without us, bridging neuroscientists and politics to frame systematic change that embeds neurodistinctiveness as part of the social fabric. It's coming back to that culture thing. So many reframes. Last chapter from Maisie. Maisie develops a frame for microactivism in workplaces, emphasizing self-advocacy, peer solidarity, and reframes the collectiveness as a collective resistance to ableism. There we go. It was a brilliant book, and just to write a sentence about each one, you can tell that my job is stalking people on Twitter. Now, last bit. So as I was listening there, Krysia, you did the reframing thing too. I was thinking when I was sitting there, yeah. This isn't about the same old. It's about movements towards better practices, breaking down the neuronormative into little Lego bricks that we can build something on the ground to be better, reframing how the world thinks about body minds. It is now. If we have named, as we do in this book, and if we frame in this book, all that is left is for us to flame. Now, flaming is brilliant. Flaming is if we want changes in our educational systems, if we want the new frames to take hold, if we want to bring change, we need the flame, that enduring rocket fuel that gets each one of us up and out and in our own ways changing the world, that flame of motivation. Be it your anger, be it your pride, our solidarity or our hope or our collective joy, we will be that flame. We each have our own voice, spoken, typed, danced, and our own ways of amplifying those through those that we know and the echoes of the internet. Action, our flame, is in our hands. And it may be risky. Affirming neurodiverse environments will be resisted by those who have only ever had it their way. We may have to ask, then demand, and then take. Every barrier that is against neurodivergent folks is a barrier that impoverishes our land, the place that we live. When we take them down, we all gain. Together, we have this flame. It has been framed, it has been named, and we together are the flames. It will not be extinguished until joy, justice, and solidarity are present in our centres of learning. These books point a way. I commend them to you.
Brian, if you want to hear more of Brian, he is the host and end reflector of the
Webinars.
Cray webinar.
Yes.
So if you want to hear more of Brian playing with words and stalking people online, that is a good place to hear more of Brian.
Also, myself and Krysia have a podcast episode together.
We do. Brian and I recently did a podcast episode for the Autism and Logic podcast on, what was it, perceptual processing and neurodivergent saints.
Yeah, I
It's
started
great.
talking about flames. Yeah, it was all.
If you're interested, I'm happy to send you the link. And we will be launching the videos which are included in our iDoc over the next 18 days from tomorrow. Isn't that correct? That
Yes.
is. Yes.
7 days to set up.
So we've got some time to set it up, and then we're going to do 2 per day, 1 from each book. And if you'd like us to tag you in what we're doing, please do let us know, and we can do that for you. And I believe that is, I was going to say, is that the end? It's the end. It's the end of our content. There's more food, there's more drinks, there's more quiet space, there's more talking, there's more stretching, there's more people on tippy toes, there's more doing whatever you want. Thank you for coming. If you want your picture with books, if you're an author, feel free. They cost a lot of money. Please do, if you want to have anything to do with them. But if you'd love to recommend them to your uni or uni library or local library, we would love it if you could, and we can help you with that if you email us. People online, what we're going to do is we're going to leave you. We're not going to close the room, but we are going to mute you and mute us at the other end. So if you want to continue to chat in the chat, you're obviously very free to. Alex will continue to moderate until 8 o'clock, and then we will close. And then people at this end, we need to be out of the room by 8:15, but please do stay around and do whatever you feel until then.